Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor sitting in front of a black velvet painting of Tom Yorke. I'm going to be reviewing his new project with his Radiohead bandmate Jonny Greenwood and the drummer from the amazingly good Sons of Kemet, Tom Skinner. If you don't own this album, listen to this album, love this album, Black to the Future, you're really missing something. And their sort of supergroup, for lack of a better term, The Smile. They have released one song to date. That's what I'm going to be talking about. It came out yesterday. I was going to do a different album today, but whenever Jonny and Tom come out with something new, that requires clearing the decks. And also, before you put it in the comments, I know they've performed every song that's going to be on their album, and it's been at Glastonbury and Wimblebury and Wimbledon and all that stuff. I don't really care about hearing live versions before the song comes out. I want to hear the song as they present it to us. And before I even get into the song, which I'll talk about in a second, what is The Smile? Why does this exist? It's a very strange thing. Solo projects exist all over the place. That happens all the time. And solo projects, which feature two or more members of the original band, isn't even that rare itself. But a solo project with the two creative forces in a band at the same time is completely unheard of. I mean, of course, Ringo made songs with John and Paul and George. But it's not like John and Paul released an album together without George and Ringo in 1968. What does this album mean? Because the reason why solo projects have to exist is usually because the dominant creative forces in a band feel the need for more freedom. That's what Tom's solo work is all about, with Atoms for Peace and his solo work, where it's a lot more glitchy, a lot more electronic. He has a specific vision. Johnny's off in the world making soundtracks to The Amazing Licorice Pizza and his even better soundtrack to Spencer. They're all doing these things. And that's what makes sense for a rock and roll band. A big, honkin' rock and roll, fill up the stadium band. They break up to do things like that. So what does it mean that they broke up? Well, they didn't break up, but they're not releasing an album for a while. Radiohead takes a long time. Hopefully they'll release a new album. But the two people who are supposed to be at odds are working together. I mean, are we supposed to assume that they're mad at Ed O'Brien? Ed O'Brien's solo work took him so far out of the band that they can't possibly release an album? Of course not. It's not like the drummer Phil Selway couldn't play everything that... Well, I'm not sure if he could play everything. But it's not like Phil Selway is some scrub drummer and they needed to find a good drummer. So what is the reason that The Smile exists? I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not a problem within the band. It's a problem with me. I don't mean like me, Professor Skye. I mean me like you, like us. We are the problem. Our expectations for Radiohead, our adulation of Radiohead, our insane, burning desire to hear everything they deign to put to wax. Our steadfast belief that every album is going... This is the thing. Real Radiohead fans don't think every album is going to be OK Computer. They think every album is going to be the change from OK Computer to Kid A. They think every album is going to be some radical change or shift, and it's so exciting. And if it ends up being only as good as King of Limbs, then we're going to be disappointed. It must be terrible to be in Radiohead. So I think this album is great. When I heard that they were doing this, I wanted to hate it because I don't want... what I love about Radiohead, I talk about this all the time, is there's a lot of bands where it doesn't matter who the other guys are. But in Radiohead, it really matters. Colin, Ed, and Phil are just as important as Jonny and Tom when it comes to seeing them live, their instrumentation, their style. That's what makes them like a real band, not just Maroon 5, right? So I wanted to hate this. But when I realized this isn't because they're sick of Radiohead, it's because they're sick of Radiohead, the big monolithic monster of all creativity and art that made me loosen up and come to enjoy this. The thing I was afraid of was that they were getting this guy, and it was like, going back to another Beatles reference, that it was like Billy Preston, in the Let It Be movie, the Get Back movie. where all of a sudden Billy Preston comes in and the Beatles are like happy because someone new is there, someone younger, hipper, and cooler. But I don't think that's it. So what is this song? I think this song, and again, I haven't heard the rest of their music, but this sounds like something of a declarative statement about what they are and what they're going to be. It's rough. I mean, rough. It is, hey, listen, I'm focusing a lot on this channel on whatever's happening in the British post-punk scene right now. And I don't think this is, I don't think this is like, Jay-Z releasing Tom Ford and being like, see, I can make rap just like the young kids this day, but I can make it better. But there is a certain degree to which you go, okay, Radiohead just wants to remind everybody up in their windmills and their Bristols and all these young kids that if Radiohead, if Johnny and Tom decided to go back to the sort of Hail to the Thief mode, they could do it. I do think it is very important that they're working with Tom Skinner. He's a very subtle and interesting drummer. And the thing about Black to the Future, about Sons of Kemet, is he's not just playing jazz. It's influenced by a lot of, all jazz is influenced by African rhythms, but maybe the African rhythms are a little bit more present, more kind of polyrhythms. So there's a subtlety to Tom Skinner's playing, which is just incredible. And my personal dream, Tom Skinner plays with another drummer in Sons of Kemet. I would like to see him just play on the next Radiohead album. Like I'd like to see him and Phil, two great jazz drummers, playing together. But that's a whole other thing. So let's actually talk about the song, huh? 6 minutes in. What do you think, Tom? There's no smile there. I'll talk about the painting at the end of the video, by the way. So how does the song start? A little bit of like feedback, a little just announcing this is going to be punk, and then these bashed hi-hats. Please note that's also where it's going to stop. That's the way the song is going to end as well. Please know that these 4 hi-hat bashes are kind of the heart of the song. Okay, these guitars start coming in. They're chugging, and as they chug, they start to go up. And as they go up, they start to get freer, okay? Like they start to get a little bit looser, until eventually they hit, I think, the next like the octave. I'm not gonna edit that out. You make a supercut of me trying to say the word octave for 5 minutes. Hits the octave, and then cuts back. So the whole tension of the song, part of the reason, I haven't said how I feel about the song. I love it. I love it. Like, oh my God. I love it. And I hate to say, I don't think I'm going to like The Smile more than I like Radiohead now, But definitely the reaction I get to this is better than the reaction that I had to anything off of Moonshaped Pool. At first. I mean, A Moonshaped Pool is obviously a masterpiece, but at first, my initial reaction is just so positive. And obviously it's so positive because it's Johnny and Tom working again together. So, we have this tightness that then extends out. Bass is not particularly important here. Like in general, the bass in the chorus, it does this nice kind of, goes a little bit high, but it really feels like it's these guitars playing together. And the whole thing, I think, is an excuse for Tom Skinner just to be awesome. This feels to me like an introduction to Tom Skinner, but it's not an introduction where you're like, this is the kind of song where dudes in drum shops, okay? Dudes who have been trained, I live in Rochester, so dudes who've been trained on drums at Eastman will be like, bro, have you heard that? Like, you don't quite know, like, how good what it is he's doing, but what he's doing is, like, so good. It's that kind of good. Now, what's cool is most of the drums are on the toms and the snare, right? So in general, in rock and roll, you ever play the hi-hat or the ride. Ding, 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 ding. The hi-hat is only for those bashes. The rest is on the toms, like a drum fill. And he's using the snares so syncopated, like so unbelievably syncopated. Like I was trying to count 1, 2, 3, 4 and count each of the snares, but I'm not classically trained. Tom's not classically trained. We don't read music. We don't know how to do all this stuff. There's other channels if you want to follow that. Hopefully they'll do it. But I can tell you, in my non-professional opinion, somebody who does this channel as a hobby that he picked up in the lobby, it's just super syncopated. And it's really exciting the way that it interacts and kind of locks in with the guitars. So the guitars and the drums, doom, 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 boom, 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 and then when the guitars get up high, boom, 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 that's when there's the release of the ksh, 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 because there's no cymbals in this song. There's no cymbals. Okay, in the bridge, I'll get to it. But in general, it's a song that is not about psh, the release. In general, and when you're playing drums, there's a sort of typical way of playing where you'll just play a standard beat, and then the fill comes, doom, not Phil Selway, like the drum fill, doom, boom, 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 and then the release is the hitting the crash cymbal, boom, boom, cap, boom, boom, cap, boom, 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 boom. But this song is all jagged edges. It's all the teeth of a saw. Awesome. And sometimes it's 3. It's not always 4. The chorus itself is not really existent. It's just saying, all right, sleep tight. It feels like the chorus was done as sort of a temp track. A lot of the song feels like it's 3 dudes just messing around, and I think that's part of the value. There is a part of this that feels like a vanity project of just, 2 aging rockers with a slightly younger guy and just like, let's have fun, but that's okay. The bridge is the one example of where we do have some ride cymbal, just playing a ride cymbal, and that's it. And what I find interesting about this bridge is I think there's horns in the back. I've listened to the song about 5 times now. I listened to it on like a big speaker, on headphones, on my computer speaker, on my phone speaker. I think it's like the sound of a French horn being played by somebody who doesn't really know how to play French horn. But it could also just be very bizarre feedback. The way it's recorded, I don't think we're supposed to know. It does end with some like recorder sounds, and then as that kind of settles, this bridge settles into the end part. The end part is just the verse, but amped up a little bit more to create some kind of like very exciting ending, even more raw than the rest. It settles back, goes into the first part, so like we do reach a crescendo with this bridge. Everything gets a little bit more violent, a little bit more aggressive, and then it settles, and then it ends with 4 more bashes. You'll notice there's one person I haven't really talked about. Tom back here. His voice is so exciting in this song. It's exciting because, he's not... Right, because the reason that Tom is famous as a singer isn't for his punk stuff. It's not for his kind of whiny, bratty, what if Johnny Rotten didn't suck, right? Like there's a lot of Johnny Rotten in Tom Yorke's voice, I think. And I mean that in a high compliment. But like the wolf at the door, the body snatchers, like that's not why Tom Yorke is loved. He's loved as being a sort of a kind of cooler version of Bono, with his and all that, and his kind of interesting range and his proximity, like the intimateness. But I think I'm okay. I'm okay if he does an entire project without whoos or without his kind of intimate shake. I wouldn't mind an entire album of his What If Johnny Rotten Wasn't a Trump Supporter. What happened there, by the way? Is that a gag? I think it's a gag. I think Johnny Rotten is joking. Well done, Johnny Rotten. But still, like, that's what we have here. We have that kind of, not even post-punk energy, but punk energy. All very guitar-led, but this voice really does lead the song. Everything leads the song. That's the thing. I told you the drums led the song, and I'm right. I said the guitar leads the song, and I'm right. And I'm telling you the voice leads the song, and I'm right. This is another thing about the smile. Another thing which people don't spend a lot of time talking about, I don't think, is the value of how many members are in a band. So Radiohead is such a 5-member band, they could almost be an entire orchestra for the amount of layers and chaos boxes and weird things that they put into their music, to the point where much of the time Tom has to loop himself in order to do something, because there needs to be 6 people on stage. But a trio, like Nirvana, Azra from Yugoslavia, if you never heard them, Jimi Hendrix Experience, not Muse. Like these bands. I'm just kidding. Like Muse, but Muse is a little bit different because they're showing off what they can do. They're not really playing with the. They're not playing with the limitation. They're bragging about the limitation. Whereas I really feel like the Smile is just using the fact that they don't have that much they can do to make something so raw. And when you just have a three-legged stool, every leg matters. I didn't write that. That's a super cheesy line. I don't know if I regret it. Tell me in the comments, with a three-legged stool, every leg matters. Is that good or is that schlock? Please tell me in the comments. And hit the like, smash the like bucket, and subscribe if you would, please. Okay, oh, wait a minute. Just the lyrics. I forgot to talk about the lyrics. The lyrics match the voice. By that, I mean Thom Yorke has different modes. And this, he's known for being sad. Mr. Sad Man, Mr. How to Disappear Completely. I understand it. He's known for being sad. But when he's angry, of course, never forget anger and sadness are essentially the same emotion in the human brain. But still, when he represents anger, it's a little bit different. I think the sadness is more general. It's like a general sadness. But his anger is usually more pointed. And this is a song that's more pointed. It's about exploiters. But not about exploiters of the earth. Not about, some oil spill. Okay? It's about rich people who exploit the poor. Fat people who exploit the hungry. Old people who exploit the young. This song very much feels it's in the same vein of Hail to the Thief. We suck young blood. It feels to be in that register. I should mention on my notes app, that's how I do it. I listen to the song, I take notes in my notes app. For some reason, I wrote "We zuck young blood," like Mark Zuckerberg. So that's not like I don't really have that many thoughts about Mark Zuckerberg, but that is kind of a funny idea. We zuck young blood. Can we maybe do like an image of Zuckerberg with the vampire teeth? Have it say "We zuck young blood." Anyways, it's about the rich exploiting the poor, the fat exploiting the hungry, the old exploiting the young, and the key to the song is found around this title. You'll never work in television again. And most importantly, in the song, it's only mentioned once. It's not the chorus. The chorus is "Sleep Tight, All Right," not a real chorus. That just felt like, well, we'll just say that for now, and then eventually we'll come up with a real chorus, and they never did. Let the lights down low. Bunga Bunga. Or you'll never work in television again. This is the key to the song. If you don't know, Bunga Bunga parties were thrown by Silvio Berlusconi, the Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister, Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister of Italy, who was famous for having sex parties in his house, and he called them Bunga Bunga parties. So gross. Such a gross thing, like weird dudes who are like kind of cult leaders and suck young blood, don't call it Bunga Bunga parties. That's just really gross. Or you'll never work in television again. You'll never work in television again is one of the declarative statements. You'll never work in this town again. You'll never work in Hollywood again. You'll never work in this business again. That is only said by people in power when they are in the process of exploiting somebody who doesn't have that power. And when that person stands up to them, that's the only time "you will never blank again" is said. It's never said in any other context except for this kind of refused exploitation. So he could be talking about Berlusconi. He could be talking about Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, not the Beatles manager. He could be talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Hell, I think these lyrics are vague enough that if I were like Charles Manson and I heard this, I would kind of go Helter Skelter and this is not a QAnon song, but this song would go well, I think, with like some of the adrenochrome Clinton's conspiracy songs. It has that kind of feel of just like all like this time about like young wrists getting slit and pretty bones being chewed up. It really does. I mean, it's not obviously. It's not that kind of silly take. It's a more general take about abuses of power. And that's what makes Thom Yorke mad. Let's do some more of the lyrics. He chews them up. He spits them out. And this is at the end when everything gets very energetic with the drums and the guitar and the bass and everything. Everything's just as exciting as it'll be. He chews him up, he spits him out. It's what's his name, the genie man, mechanical, all those beautiful young hopes and dreams devoured by those evil eyes and those piggy limbs. We are a little bit back in the OK Computer era, right? He has a whole bunch of stuff about the piggies. He often talks about these piggies, these images. And I think Berlusconi at these Bunga Bunga parties is the sort of figurehead. They are all Berlusconi. We are all kind of, if we are powerless, in a Bunga Bunga party, being told we either Bunga Bunga or we don't get to work again. My favorite line just happens to be some gangster troll promising the moon. I just like the way that those lines come together. There's a part of the song which is very poetic, which is very much like he's by poetic I mean everything he says isn't exactly clear what he means, but it all fits within the larger theme. It may be some of his strongest lyrics in that sense, where everything's not particularly clear, but we know what he means. So there's my review of the song. This was my Christmas gift to my son. I got these black velvet paintings. Isn't it amazing? This is done by someone named Bruce White. You can go to velvetgeek.com to see. He's a friend of mine as well. Isn't that a great painting? Isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that a great painting? You can tell me in the comments if you think that's a great painting. I love it. He says he wants to do these things like Byzantine icons. Don't you see it? Saint Tom. Okay. Patron saint of what? That's another thing you can tell me in the comments. Okay. Until next time, I'm very excited about the Smile. I'm so happy I like this. I'm so happy that whatever they come out with is going to be awesome. Okay. Till next time, there's the camera.